Right. So it looks like we are live. Good evening, everybody. I'm checking my platforms as usual to make sure that I am live. If you are hearing me and seeing me, I would love for you to let me know. Let me know where in the world you are joining me from. If you're hearing me and seeing me, please feel free to put it in the comments. Um, of course, I think I'm live on LinkedIn. I'm seeing like I'm live on LinkedIn. And I'm going to check my Facebook page and make sure I'm live there. And we are live, we are live, we are live. All right, we are live on Facebook. So live, we are live on Facebook, we are live on LinkedIn, and we are live on YouTube. So again, good evening to everyone. Thank you so much for joining me to another live all about navigating career transitions and career changes. Marcia and I are back here again. This is our fourth live. It's kind of going pretty quickly. I'm finding now the year is going pretty quickly, and of course, we are doing these lives to provide some tips and some information that will lead up to a workshop from branding to budgeting that Marcia and I are teaming up for. As I mentioned, I really enjoy collaborating. Marcia is out of the beautiful island of Barbados, and I am in Trinidad and Tobago. That's the most southern Caribbean island. And I'm excited to be here. Let me know again if you're hearing me and seeing me. Let me know what platform you're joining me on, because that's pretty important. And let me know where in the world you are joining us from. Of course, I'll say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, because it's actually the night time here. It's about a little after 7 p.m. here in the Caribbean, but I know, we have persons from all around the world that are joining us. And as I mentioned, we are here to discuss navigating career transitions or career changes. It's a really important topic. But before I get to that, of course, I have to shoot across to Marcia and let Marcia reintroduce herself again to our audience. So Marcia, feel free, you have the floor. You have to unmute.
Thank you. Thanks, Debbie. So, good night, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Marcia Armstrong. I am the founder of A Purpose Life, and my superpower is educating, equipping, and empowering corporate professionals and small business owners with the strategic financial solutions that they need to achieve generational wealth. And I am honored and excited to get right into what we will cover tonight. So I hope that you have your notepads ready. Drop in the chat if you're joining us live. Just drop hashtag live. Let us know where you're tuning in from. And for those that will catch this on the replay, put hashtag replay in the chat so that we know that you would have seen this video after the fact, but we're still sending you love as well. Back over to you, Debbie.
Thank you so much. Enjoying it. And I'm going to jump right in, because this is something that I get asked about a lot, right? And I think, I don't want to say it's a unique perspective here in the Caribbean, but I notice that sometimes, especially perhaps newer entrepreneurs, there is a misconception about what their personal brand should be, right? Is your personal brand one thing, right? So meaning that if I am an accountant, and let's say my spouse and I own some sort of pet store, pet accessory store, is it okay to kind of combine the two? Do I need to pick one over the other? Will I confuse my audience, right? Um, And I want to really say that a lot of us in the Caribbean, including myself, have multiple I would say careers, and sometimes different ways in which we earn in income, right? I can say right off the bat, when I worked in the corporate space, one of the first things I did was begin to teach part-time in my 20s, and I've been doing that ever since. So it's a hat I've been wearing alongside being a corporate, a corporate professional. So it is possible for persons to have different passions and still be able to communicate a very clear brand. And that's where I want to kind of start off with, by saying that it is important that when you have multiple interests and multiple passions, it is important that you communicate this adequately, and not only communicate it adequately. As your career changes, you may move up the corporate ladder, you may transition from one distinct type of job to another distinct type of job. It is important to actually communicate that evolution. And not only that, do not be afraid that, okay, if I was this in a sort of past life, or this in my career before, I can't talk about it, or I can't showcase it. The truth is, the skills that you would have accumulated in the last 5 years, 7 years, 10 years in one job can actually be transferable skills that now help to make you a better employee, a better manager, and even make you a better entrepreneur. So you have to look at those things. How can I communicate that clearly to my audience, one, and then how can I also leverage those transferable skills, right? So I want to, before I jump to Marcia, I want to give you 4 tips. If you are in a space where you are transitioning from one career to another, one job to another, you're moving from full-time employment and now jumping out into the entrepreneurial space, and you have been creating your brand and networking and doing those things. Here are some things you need to do, right? As you move from one career to another, one of the first things you have to do, of course, is get clarity on what your new brand is supposed to be, right? So get clear in terms of defining, and Marcia has said that throughout these lives, get clear in defining your vision, your purpose, why you're doing this, your values, because this is what you now need to be. This is now what you have to communicate with your audience, right? The second thing, of course, is more about the brand aesthetics, because once you are clear in terms of what it is you are doing and how you want to communicate it and how you serve your market, you then have to update things naturally. Your LinkedIn profile will have to update to show the new change, the new career transition. If you're an entrepreneur, you might want to update your logo. You might need a new website, a separate website if you have a different company. So you will have to, look at your brand assets, and you will have to adjust those brand assets. The third thing is really, really key and important, and is what I mentioned before. Show how the skills that you have acquired in the last 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, 20 years are transferable indeed. How are the things that you have learned and done and experienced made you a better individual for this new space you have in your life, right? And this is very true for me, because I started my earliest career doing, I was in accounts, then I kind of transition, did sales and marketing combined. I was also a lecturer. The lecturing and training has helped me, of course, and is now a new arm of my business as well. So the skills that I was accumulating is now a big part of what it is I do. So that's an important thing I think persons need to think about. Don't think about it as a separate thing. It is actually you evolving, and those skills that you have acquired, you can actually utilize it in your new realm of influence within your new brand, right? And then, of course, the last one, which is key for a successful personal brand, I always say, right? It's not just content creation, it's not just being visible online, but continuing to network and building your network. So remember, now that you are transitioning into a new career and into a new space, you're going to need to build new connections, a new network of persons who will be there to perhaps partner with you, to collaborate with you, to help your business grow, you help their business grow. So you have to then look at how you begin to network and to network strategically in your new career, your new at the way that you are transitioning, right? So with that, I am going to transition and go right to Mars. Yeah, again, folks, if you are hearing me, seeing me, make sure feel free to put some comments there and let us know that you are here with us and you are, and what you think, and if you have any questions. So Marcy, I hand it across to you.
So thanks, Debbie, and thank you for sharing those valuable 4 points. As you mentioned, each definitely something that needs to be considered in regards to your personal brand. And I like the fact that you would have started with having that level of vision, because you have to have what is the overall objective of what it is that you're going to do, because all of your actions will be based on what that vision is, right? And then you will be able to kind of do like an audit of that process to know whether or not you are progressing the way you want to. So thank you for sharing. From a financial perspective, it is quite similar that I would, even before I get into my points, I would start off by saying, number one is that when it comes to navigating in career changes, now career changes can happen if you decide that you want to walk away. You've given yourself that ability and power to say, you know what, I want something different. And you might have an exit strategy, right? Which means that you might have an idea in regards to the time frame that you're working with, but we also understand that we live in a world where that life happens as well. So sometimes, things can happen that can kind of shift the course, and we can involuntarily be let go. Now, what I would say is that when you are in a career, it is very, very important that you are an observant person. I can speak for myself in regards to when I worked in corporate. I am very observant. So when I saw certain things changing, when I saw, our team not being included in meetings, like there are signs on the wall, people, right? There are certain signs on the wall, and it is for you to be able to have a level of observation, so that you understand, what, something might be coming. And so you don't want a situation where that you are unaware and then it unexpectedly happens and then you're not prepared. So I'm going to walk through at least 3 to 4 things I want you to consider in regards to financing, budgeting, in regards to transition. And the very first thing I will add here is, number one, again, along the lines of having a financial audit. What that means is that you want to know currently where you're at in regards to your finances. That is whether you're not that means that I'm looking at, if do I have savings right now in the bank, right? Do I have savings right now? And you want to make sure you have something liquid that you can pull from at ease, right? So do I have savings? Do I have any level of investments going on? Do I have any debt that I have to consider, right? Are there any people or any persons dependent upon my salary, dependent upon the revenue that I'm earning? Do I have the people who are dependent on me to bring home money so that we can take care of the household, right? And those are just a few things that you need to consider, so that you know, okay, this is my starting point, and okay, if I'm planning, if it's in your control, if I'm planning to transition, where do I actually need this number to move to? because you might be at some numbers right now, but it might not be a comfortable number. It might not be a number that will provide sufficient coverage. So you want to be able to know where you are at and then where you are going. So some things to consider. Number one of the blocks is definitely have an emergency fund. And this can apply to both personal and business, right? And when we speak about having an emergency fund, we understand that Murphy comes, right? Knocking at the dead of the night. But things happen, folks, right? That we don't plan for. But things happen. But so instead of that blow happening and it causes like a crisis, having an emergency fund in place allows you to have an inconvenience. There's a difference, right? So you're not experiencing a crisis, although it is something that you weren't expecting. You're more so experiencing an inconvenience. So when we speak about emergency funds, I want you to more so pay attention to your core bills, your core expenses, your needs, right? And what does the need consist of? Think about the four walls, right? Whether it is your shelter, you're paying a rent or a mortgage, whether you're paying utilities, whether you have any loans that you're paying in there as well, whether or not it applies to transportation or food, the things that you need in order to operate. And if that is not accessible to you, then what is the plan B? What is the backup plan? So when we speak about emergency fund, ideally or is recommended that you should at least have 3 to 6 months of living expenses, that coverage. However, with the pandemic, a lot has changed and it has changed the way we operate. So for some persons, 3 to 6 months might not even be sufficient. They might extend it to 9 months or even a year, right? And the same thing will go for business as well. In your business, you shall have core expenses. So that whether or not if you are in a position and you're unable to pay any of those core expenses, it can actually derail you from showing up in your business, right? So you should know for yourself what your core bills are. All right, and that is what we're focusing on. So once you determine what your core bills are, that is what then we will multiply by 3, by 6, by 9, by 12, and we will get that total, and we will look then to save that amount, right? So number one is to have an emergency fund. Number two, well, I would say 1A. 1A will technically be your expenses again, but you're looking in the dynamic of what is fixed and what is variable. But it is really the fixed expenses I want you to pay more attention to. Right? Now, when it comes to fixed expenses, we can plan better with fixed expenses. We know if rent is $2,000 a month, it is $2,000 a month, right? It is not a surprise. So when it comes to transitions as well, based on the time frame you need your coverage to be able to cover your bills, you have to understand if I'm paying $2,000 a month in rent and then multiply that by 6, right? We work out what that 6 month looks like, and we know it's not going to be a surprise because it is a fixed bill. Right? So it's a little easier to cover your fixed expenses versus the variable expense, which pretty much comes in differently month on month based on your usage. All right. So we have that first one out of the way. Now, tied to your expenses, there's also non-discretionary expenses like your wants, right? These are things that you want, but if they don't happen, you will still live. Let me repeat that. If your wants do not happen, you will still live. All right, so we're talking about entertainment. We're talking about eating out. We want to, when it comes to our non-discretionary or our wants, you really want to aim to either reduce it around this time or even eliminate it for the short term, because again, you're building towards an exit strategy, right? You're transitioning. So you can't afford to really be putting money into areas whereas that it's taken away from other money goals in regards to saving, investing, or having a coverage in regards to your emergency fund. You want to be able to kind of minimize the spending along the lines of your wants, right? Now, I won't tell you to cut out everything because I believe that there should be balance in anything that you're doing, but it is to remember why you're doing what you're doing. And even if I have to eliminate it or pause it for now, it is not long term. It is only in the short term because I have a bigger goal down the road. So we also have to look at the fact that when it comes to non-discretionary expenses, there might be certain bills that you have that you can negotiate. Yes, people, you can negotiate bills. All right. So there are some sort of service providers that you can give a call to. You can renegotiate terms. You can do it with things like your mobile bill. I remember a time I was paying a bill that was $150 a month. I had a slight conversation with a friend one day, and she told me about her package, and she was only paying $75, and her package was way better than mine. And we were at the same company, and it was like, what? So the next day, not the next week, the next day I went to that organization and I got my bill reduced immediately. Conversation bring forth some truths that we don't know. All right, so you can renegotiate with service providers, especially if it's a circumstance where you're paying ready for a service and you don't use half the things in the package anyway. You're already not utilizing it to its full potential, so you can renegotiate in some instances and not necessarily cut out because you might need it, but you can renegotiate when it comes to your bills. You can also change your packages. You can also reduce payments. It is for you to raise your hand and understand, if I'm transitioning to something else, it might not be paying me the same salary. I might be taking a cut. I might be getting paid more. So you got to make sure that your payments also have to reflect the transition, because a budget is a living document, right? It is pretty much a mirror of what your life is. So your life can't be one thing and your budget is showing something completely different. The two have to be connected. All right. So if I'm going through a transition, the budget technically has to go through that transition with you as well, because in some instances, you might have to cut down on some payments. You might have to stop some payments, right? It's going to kind of guide you in your decision making. And then lastly, I want to mention about debt. All right. That big D word, right? So when it comes to debt, we have to make sure that we are managing our debt well. Now, when you don't pay your debt on time and you don't service your debt, you understand that it does have a negative consequence when it comes to your credit rating or your profile, right? So it's not something that we can ignore. So what I will say is that you want to be able to raise your hand, especially in a case where you might lose your job. You want to raise your hand technically and let that creditor know what is going on. All right. Don't ever have a situation whereas that you stop paying on the debt, it runs into arrears and that organization has to call you. Be proactive and actually have a conversation, right? And also when it comes to debt, the aim here is to pay off high interest debt. So any debt that's over 7%, ideally, you want to be able to pay those debts off, because the higher the interest rate, the more money you actually pay in interest over the life of the loan. And we don't want a situation whereas that we're transitioning and every month money has to be going towards debt, right? You have to understand that your money is not, you don't have an inflow. You don't have money coming in at the moment. So you want to minimize as much as possible what is being taken out on a month-to-month basis. So what I would say as well, there are avenues for you to renegotiate with creditors as well. When we had the pandemic, we have moratoriums. There were certain things that were offered by the banks, by the credit unions, to say, hey, if you can't pay, we can hold off on the principal, just make sure you pay the interest. So there are options. There are things in place that creditors can help you out with in regards to restructuring payment if it's necessary. But I want you to, again, if you do have that, I want you to consider not allowing it to get to a place of default, because it will impact your actual credit history and rating, and you don't want that to have a negative consequence on borrowing in the future. All right, so 3 things I covered. I dealt with doing a money audit altogether to see where you're currently at with your finances. You're going to do an emergency fund, whereas you're going to prepare, right? You're going to prepare based on your core bills. You're going to also look at your fixed expenses and have an idea, have a forward glance in regards to, okay, how much coverage do I need in regards to my fixed bills, which I know are going to come. Make sure you have enough coverage for that. We also looked at reducing our non-discretionary expenses, such as our wants. And then lastly, we looked at debt management. All right, so those are 3 areas. There are a few more, but those are 3 areas tonight that I will share on this area. But ideally, you want to be prepared. So let me just sum it up like this. When it comes to career transitions, yes, you can have the option to leave and have an exit strategy or a plan, but then you also have the flip side where an employer might tell you, it was nice having you, thank you for your contribution, but we can no longer employ you at our organization, right? So sometimes it can happen involuntarily. So you don't ever want to be in a situation where you are not prepared financially and go through something like a job loss, where you have that emotional, high going on. And then you also have to deal with the financial side too. That's a lot to deal with at the same time. So I want you to get in a situation where that you are prepared. All right. So I'm handing it back to you, Debbie.
Thank you so much, Miles. Yeah, I think that was really, really very, very, very impactful. I think people sometimes take for granted. I would think that persons are more cognitive now after the pandemic because you realize that things could just occur. And I mean, a lot of things occurred in Trinidad. You know, I have had friends whose spouse was kind of let go, and then her income was cut because they cut back days and so on, and they were paying a mortgage. And these things, we need to stay in a space where we really prepare. We really, really prepare, and I think what you said, I mean, it resonates with me because I've kind of gone through that type of those types of transitions. But it's important for persons to really think and to really plan around these changes that may happen, especially as you said, you may be planning it, and sometimes you might have to leave earlier than you plan, and then in some instances, it can be just a complete job loss. And then what do you do, especially if you have people depending on your income, to just live and survive and so on. So it's really, really it can be a scary time. So with that, guys, I want to just give you guys a reminder. I drop it in the comments, the registration link from branding to budgeting. All these tips and advice and expertise and consulting is going to be coming at you on Wednesday, January the 31st from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. If you are interested in really kind of resetting, in making sure that you have an excellent 2024, that you have clarity in terms of your vision, your purpose, your financing, and you really want to really take your career and or your business to the next level, register for our workshop. Again, Wednesday, January the 31st, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And the registration link is right there, right? From branding to budgeting, right? Any closing comments there, Marcia?
Yes, I just wanna just encourage, persons that, the workshop that we're going to be doing at the end of the month, you don't want to go through this year, just guesstimating what you should be doing in regards to personal branding and financial planning and budgeting. You want to be in a position where you're being given the tools, strategic tools on what you can do right now to see instant change in your business. So most definitely, as we cover these topics month on week on week, sorry, it is building up to this workshop that we have at the end of the month on the 31st. And I know for sure persons have been really enjoying our lives. And if you believe that it is high level, but if you're enjoying these topics, you can just imagine what we have planned for you on January the 31st. So register, share the link with your friends, your besties, your family, get everybody into the room.
Great. All right, guys. Thanks so much, Miles. And I say bye-bye, guys. Until next week. We will see you again next week, Tuesday, with another live, of course, all themed along the lines from branding to budgeting. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.